Launch week number 2 in the books, completely finished, and we're here for the wrap party. I'm Bob Tordella, help manage our sales and partnerships. I also help evangelize our open source projects, Steampipe, and now also Flowpipe, which we'll get into a bit more. And so with me today, I have Nathan, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Nathan Wallace. I'm the founder and CEO here and do a lot to help the team with the product design, marketing, all that sort of stuff.
Great. And Victor?
Oh, hi, I'm Victor here. I live in Australia, so it's early morning right now. I work in the engineering team. I've been working in a few products in Turbots, but in the past few months, been focused on Flowpipe mostly.
Yeah, and we're rocking some cool Flowpipe.
Yeah, we're all Flowpipe shirts. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was for good contributions back to the project. Actually, these shirts or these type of shirts will actually go out to folks as part of our swag.
Right. Yeah. You can see it. Can you see that one?
Nice.
Yeah, Victor, if you want to just do another spin, no. So similar to what we did last launch week number 1, you know, I thought it would be good just to get you guys in a room to talk about some of the features that we came out with this week. Just to give some more insights for folks that want to get more into the details of, you know, what we did, why we did it, and what the community was giving feedback around. And so just to kind of round out the conversations that we posted on our blog for each announcement. And so so just to go throughout the week, we'll start with Monday, which was mainly focused on Turbot Guardrails. And this was a significant a feature set because it actually was our next big scope that we came out with. So Turbot Guardrails, for those who aren't familiar, discovers all the changes that are happening within Amazon, Azure, and Google, and it automatically remediates and corrects security, operations, compliance misconfigurations. And so this new scope that we came out with was an integration to ServiceNow. And so this was a big leap for us because it was beyond just the cloud providers and now looking at another type of business application that we would integrate with and have features around. And so, you know, Nathan, maybe if you want to just kind of talk us through that type of journey, actually, when you and I were first talking about it and what we were hearing from our customers.
Yeah, well, I mean, pretty much every large organization has ServiceNow there to track their different assets and what's going on in their company, and particularly their IT. And we've always sort of joked about it as like, you know, the virtual representation of your physical infrastructure, right? And cloud, of course, changes that because it's changing so fast and you're trying to work out how to get that data in there and should you even get it in there, etc. And we've kind of, you know, seen that go over years, watch people try to struggle with that, see our customers struggle with that. And so it's super exciting to come out with an answer. And, you know, our answer is really that you need to do 2 things, right? The first thing you have to do is work out how do you get your context out of ServiceNow into Turbot Guardrails, right? So that we can use it in Guardrails to make decisions about, you know, should this server be running now? Are you allowed to launch an instance of this size in this organization? What tags should we automatically put onto these resources, etc.? By having all those cost centers, applications, etc., we can be so much richer in our control framework, security, and operational decisions that we do through automation in the cloud. So getting that context out of ServiceNow into Guardrails is really critical. The second thing for us is, of course, getting all of those cloud assets into your ServiceNow instance. So we did a lot of work for how to synchronize those out and do that, of course, in the Guardrails way, which means in real time, constantly updating, adding, updating, deleting, all that sort of stuff magically. But, you know, so those were the 2 dimensions, getting stuff, context into Guardrails, and then, of course, getting the infrastructure and assets out into your ServiceNow instance so you can deal with it all out there as well. They're the 2 big things. But of course, I'm prattling on about it while actually, Bob, you did a lot of the work on it. So maybe, you know, what were some of the things you enjoyed about that integration or that you're really excited to talk to customers about?
Yeah, so already over the last number of years, customers have been pulling data out of ServiceNow to then bring in the Guardrails. We've been doing it through integrations off to the side, through scripts, bringing it into Turbot as like a Turbot file, and that adds into our CMDB, then we push down into our controls. But with this direct integration, it provides really just a point and click, and it's surprising like just how seamless it is between our 2 products to get that data in and then constantly and continuously manage those configs from ServiceNow to guardrails. And so, very popular reason for why people do that is because folks mainly, one of the top controls that they use Turbot Guardrails for is for tagging automation. And so, like you were mentioning, like cost centers, applications, users, that type of context needs to be tagged down on that resource so that then Turbot can decipher and orient itself to then take an action. So to maybe encrypt something or to lock something down or to delete something that's not approved, that context could be based on the application itself, the data classification, the compliance applicability. And so having that updated real time and then Turbot tagging those resources in real time gives that full circle of context of your security posture, your business context, all working in concert together. And so this integration makes it really easy for folks just to simply point and click and integrate and then bring that down into their control. So super excited, for the enterprise customers that already been using this type of integration now that actually supercharge that. And then for a number of other folks that are in preview with it, we're excited to get them up and running. On the other side, for the syncing of Turbot to ServiceNow, just the amount of folks that we've heard from over the years, and we've always discredited the need, and even folks like from Gartner will say, a federated CMDB is the approach. Don't try to slam everything in to your ServiceNow CMDB because it's a huge and complex data problem. Resources are transient. You must keep it updated in real time, and that's a really tough data problem to solve. And so, for us, we take it for granted. Our CMDB is constantly updated as Amazon, Azure, Google, creates or updates or deletes are happening. We're continuously updated, searchable. You see the configuration drift, the audit history. And for us, just to bring it over to ServiceNow was actually just a win-win, just to simply solve that for our customers who have been struggling with doing it themselves with some of the native solutions that are out there. And so, from the folks that we've been working with on this, there's just a tremendous amount of promise to reduce their costs of how they do that discovery, to get better coverage, but mainly it's around the data quality, right? So that's constantly what we hear is that the enterprise CMDB is super valuable for context, but it's outdated, it's manually updated, and therefore folks don't trust it. And that is once you erode the trust of your CMDB, right, ops can't use it. And that's the main goal of it is for operations to solve tickets faster. And without it, they don't have the context that they need. So we're excited to help in this kind of business flow, in this IT operations flow to get them the data they need, timely and always updated.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we're excited. There's a couple of cool POCs that are going on right now and looking forward to working closely with them. All right, so Monday, great day for Turbot Guardrails. Tuesday was all about Steampipe, and we had some great launch week 1 activities with Steampipe, but this really was a brand new type of Steampipe environment. We for working with the community on this and you guys more closely was around constantly people are looking for different ways to easily manage and get their data from Amazon, Azure, Google, GitHub, Slack, Zoom, right? All the 100+ plugins that we have in order to simply get data, query, and report on. They're very comfortable with our CLI, have a lot of great features for that. But oftentimes people were asking for, well, how do I get it closer to my database? And how do I make it easier and more seamless in different scopes versus just using the Steampipe CLI? And so this was a huge feat to start offering these Zero-ETL Steampipe plugins or distribution. So I don't know, Nathan, if you want to just kind of talk through, what Zero-ETL is, why did we introduce these new distributions beyond CLI, and maybe just start with at least one of them, like Postgres or
Sure. Yeah, look, we all know about ETL, right? Or, ELT depends on how cool and modern you want to be, but basically extracting, loading, transforming right outside of data, so we can work on it. And we've done that for years. But what we end up with is these big infrastructures and capabilities to do it, to move the data around. And we kind of forget that the really simple thing we want to do is just ask a question, right? Just give me my issues, like give me a list of all of my servers, like, pull down all of the users in my Salesforce instance, whatever they might be. They're just questions, right? And the whole premise behind Zero-ETL is to try to zero out the infrastructure, right? Get to a place where you can just ask the question. You don't need any of that. And we just do it live by talking to the APIs directly, right? So there's this zero configuration, zero infrastructure. You just sit there and query the stuff, right? Steampipe, of course, has done that, for a long time now in, a great CLI, which embeds Postgres inside it. It's super convenient for that, built-in tooling, etc. But like you said, I might often want to do it with my other data. I've got a lot of my own data. I want a little bit of ETL there. Like, just let me do it. And so what we came up with as we thought through this problem was that we really need to let your ETL be everywhere, right? We've got to put the Zero-ETL wherever you already are. And that's what we did with this release. So we brought it out for Postgres, native FTWs. You've got your own Postgres instance. You put the FTW in there. It works like any other Postgres extension or FTW. And suddenly you've got all that available. Then we did the same thing for SQLite, just as extensions. So you can just run SQLite on your machine, plug that extension in, query away, right, against all those Steampipe plugins, right? And finally, we added a new one, which is the most Zero-ETL you can get. There's no database at all. It's just do it on a command line and dump it out to a file, right? You can't get any more zero than that from a database point of view, right? Those three things are all launched this week with 114, I think, in the end plugins for each one, out of the gate, right, working across that entire ecosystem, which is a ridiculous, by the way, product exercise for us, but it's super exciting for users to be able to query that, use that straight away in their environments. So we want to see that ETL, that Zero-ETL, just spreading out everywhere you need it. That's why we're open source. That's why everything's there, right? And you can just use it and play with it and just focus on the questions, right, and go from there. The ability to persist that data, it's optional. Just use a materialized view, use Turbot Pipes with its data tank, whatever you'd like to do that sort of persistence, right? But we think the live query is really amazing and good enough a lot of the time. The other really cool thing about live queries and Zero-ETL is it changes which data matters. So historically, when you have a data warehouse, it's really good, and ETL, it's really good for medium-sized data. If it's too small, it's too hard and complicated to set it all up, right? Too many sources for small bits of data. That's small, wide data, if you want to use sort of Gartner speak. It's really hard to do in a traditional ETL or ELT. Similarly, very, very large data is impossible to do because you can't suck it all in, right? What changes about that when you think just about asking the question and using live queries like these allow you to do from your data store is you don't have to suck it in anymore. Just search, right, and get the response as a database table that you can use straight away. So you can do it against the largest data sets, the largest APIs, all of which are now fast enough to handle that. Or you can do it across lots of small things, which are so fast to query live that why would you bother going through all the infrastructure to suck them in, right? The middle, you can query as well, right, when we have all of those different filters we do for server side. But really, it changes the data set that's appropriate for ETL, right, and lets you think of it in a slightly different way or augment what you're already doing with these sorts of Zero-ETL capabilities. So anyway, I'm proudly on because I'm excited, but it was just so great to get those out there. I think for us, it was like, what is it? 3 times 114. So whatever, 342 releases we did for all of that. We updated all the docs, all the SQLite examples are there. Massive enriched effort with that Steampipe hub if you want to check it out.
Yeah, and it was a incredible amount of deployment activity this time around. And for folks that are looking to get those packages, so mainly our Steampipe hub is where you get all of that, all the information about all the tables, all the plugins. Right. For folks that are using the Steampipe CLI, what's going to change for them, or like how would they maybe use that in concert with these or not? Or how would they leverage the hub in order to look at the differences?
Right. Yeah, if you're using the existing Steampipe CLI, there's no change. Everything works exactly the way you always did. Steampipe plugin install, away you go. If you want to use it inside your Postgres, then you'd use the RFDW. You can find the instructions under the download page on Steampipe.io. And it's very clear. We actually give you a little installer script to just download the actual .so file for Postgres, right? A couple of others. And then you run a series of like creating a foreign server, right? Creating a foreign schema, all the stuff you do. It's just pure native Postgres. There's no CLI, nothing special about it. It's literally just an extension for your Postgres. SQLite's the same, but it's a unique SQLite way. So they're just available for download via the repos, right? But it's all the easiest way is to just go to Steampipe.io downloads and find it from there.
Got it. And for the export one, if we can just do a little bit more
Mm,
conversation around, that use case itself. I mean, this is basically like zero ETL for your command line itself, and
yeah,
you're doing these direct queries that are just straight
right,
exporting
right,
to like a JSON or
right.
YAML or
Yeah,
CSV.
look, what's so often what we hear from people is, I just want the stuff in a file and I just want to open it in a spreadsheet. Like, it's not
Yeah,
complicated. Like, I don't, SQL might be a bit complicated for me, or it's a bit drama. I just really want to play with the data. I just want to dump it and play with it in a spreadsheet. That's exactly what these export CLIs were designed to do. So if you
right.
take the AWS one, that little export CLI will just export 400 and something tables with one command, Steampipe, export of AWS, and then AWS S3 bucket, boom, you've got all your S3 buckets in a CSV file, right? So it's just super easy, really lightweight, incredible for DevOps teams, just to be able to use it in pipelines, workflows, wherever you want to do it.
Yeah, that one's super impressive along with the rest, but that's I think that's going to get one of the most tractions as well as the Postgres.
Yeah, well,
So
especially when you think about backing up. Oh, I want to back up my GitLab data. Great.
yeah,
Steampipe, export, GitLab. Boom, you got it all. So I would need the same for Jira, same commands. It's just the same everywhere. It's such an incredible set of tooling across all of the cloud platforms you use.
yeah. I mean, just that one alone, like just dumping like your IAM users in Amazon would be its own really successful open source project. This is
Right.
like 400 things just in that one,
Yeah.
and then all the times all of our other plugins that we
Correct.
have, all different scopes. It's
Right.
yeah, I'm excited to see what the
And as a
community.
plugin author, the really cool thing is you just write one plugin and you get
Yeah.
all of this out of the box now. So you write one plugin set of code, Steampipe CLI, Postgres, SQLite, the export, it's all done because it's all running from that same underlying SDK.
Yeah, and that's, for folks that are like kind of signing up for this ecosystem, I mean, they're just constantly getting dividends from that work because the
Right.
consistency, not
Yeah.
only across like Steampipe and the
Right.
plugin, but then also if you're using the dashboards as code, it all just keeps building off each other. And
Right.
actually, that's one of the things that I'm really excited about is our new open source project, Flowpipe,
Mm-hmm.
that the integration with Steampipe, but just even on its own, which we'll
Yeah.
focus on first. But again, another tool in the community that will look and feel very similar
Right.
for folks that are already using Steampipe.
Right.
But
Right.
Victor, the Flowpipe's such a huge open source project that we just announced on Wednesday, and wanted to get your take because you're one of the main architects on it, key developer on it as well. Why don't you maybe just talk through, Flowpipe and what are the things that you were working on for it, and maybe just talk through what you were excited about on working on that and then getting it out there into the market.
Yeah, if we look at a Flowpipe, I think as a company, we've dealt with the concept of pipelines very early on. So this is something that we've been working a lot and something that we have a lot of experience and something that we've always think about, look, how do we make these pipelines better? What can we do with all the various pipelines? So from the very first incarnation of Turbot, we've been dealing with lots of pipelines, and then again in Turbot Guardrails and in Turbot Pipes, and finally Flowpipes, where we actually bring all these pipelines together and just make an open source product so people can use it and with various different stuff. It's very, very exciting project for me personally, and I think for a lot of people in the team as well, to be able to do this low code pipeline is a good concept. And it's a very challenging project as well, although it's drawn a lot of knowledge from all the projects, all the products that we've had in the past. And I think it shows with all the applications, what we can do with it and all the samples and everything.
Yeah, it's almost like that whole dividend of being in that ecosystem. It was actually a little bit easier for us to adopt, not only our experience in using this type of technology, not Flowpipe itself, but the type of technology and the intent, in our other products like you mentioned, but also then these different scopes that we manage in Steampipe. We already understand like, okay, the Slack scopes that you need to manage against, what are the use cases that people need to maybe get data, pass it around, what's the actions that they need to take. And so Flowpipe's a really good fit to start kind of coordinating those type of activities and passing data around or taking action on it.
Yeah.
And so one of the one of the things that you mentioned, the kind of the low code aspect of it, and low code could be a loaded term for people, making different things. But I think here was really looking at Flowpipe as almost like a scripting engine, per se, and in that for a cloud scripting engine that we're able to define what your sources are, define what your actions are going to be, and then how to compose them into a workflow. But really the options that you have to do that as a developer. Why don't you just talk us through, like, without a Flowpipe, what are you doing in order to, as a developer, to get data out of systems, to then take action with them, or transform them, load them somewhere, or take an action? What is your alternative to Flowpipe today?
Well, traditionally, you would have to write lots of scripts yourself. You have to write using the, for example, AWS CLI to retrieve data, and then you would write a different script to understand the data, and to decide what kind of actions you want to do with the data. And then you would maybe write some sort of scripts or program to then call the appropriate API or call the appropriate using the SDK to perform the actions. So a lot of the things are encapsulated in our other products as well. But with Flowpipe, we presented to you that you can write. It's not a click around. It's not building a complicated YAML or JSON workflows. You don't have to write a lot of code to do a lot of this thing. But with Flowpipe, what you can do, you can use our HCL configuration. It's a format that a lot of people are familiar with. You define the steps of the pipelines. For example, we have the step first to pull the data, and we got the steps to understand the data, and then the steps to actually call the HTTP endpoint, the API endpoint, to actually perform the actions. So a lot of those things are orchestrated within Flowpipe. So you hopefully you don't have to write as much code as you would normally have to, or quite often it's very difficult to do, because if you choose a system that you don't write any code at all, it's usually very opinionated. It's very difficult to actually configure that systems. The other point of the spectrum is, you have all controls of everything, but then you have to write a lot of code to do all of it, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're trying to find a very good balance here, which is not like so opinionated that you can't do anything with it. You really have to follow their opinion, or the other one that you have to write everything. So hopefully we have the balance right here with Flowpipe.
Yeah, and like, to me personally, that's something that's like more achievable or more attainable for me to work in. Not an engineer, not a developer, but I can do scripting. I can write Terraform, I can write SQL queries. I have done some smaller scripts, but to do something from scratch is very difficult when you're not an engineer developer day to day. And so something that's kind of in the middle is where I want that flexibility, because if I was to do something like if then that, or Zapier or others, those are great tools. But as soon as you want to do something custom, you have to open up the door, and then you're doing something in JavaScript or something a little bit more complicated, or you can't do something and you got to do something off the side with their API. And so, for folks that are kind of in the middle, like a cloud engineer or platform engineer, or et cetera, having something that is familiar, like HCL, and talk about that. And maybe Nathan, if you want to maybe talk about that synergy with our other products like Steampipe, and that type of persona that we're seeing in the community. How are they achieving using these type of language, and why that's important, and then why did we choose that for Flowpipe?
Yeah, I mean, as you guys mentioned, like, there's a real spectrum to choose from, right? There's a lot of workflow tools, Zapier, et cetera. At one end, you're clicking around, right? And they're great. They work well for the simple cases. Our finance team loves them, et cetera. So they're really cool, but they're not great for DevOps, where you want more control, you want more code. Now, if you want the code land, you're at the other end. You're writing Lambda functions, state machines with step functions, right? Maybe temporal, other things. Great tools. We love them. We use them extensively, but they're really heavy, right? And complicated to write. Now, you can come into the middle and go, I'm going to write Python script. Love Python. We write it all the time. But man, it's hard once you start going, well, I want to run this container and now I want to wait for that result. And now I want to like retry if it fails a couple of times and stuff. It's really hard to write. Your code gets very complicated very quickly to cover the various conditions and cases you care about. Now, for the world of DevOps, what you're always trying to do is script across this soup of stuff, right? Like all these different cloud providers, and you need approvals from people, and you got to go here and send a notification and wait for that. And it's like, it's really complicated asynchronous programming to do, right? So programming tools just aren't awesome for it. And there isn't a great scripting alternative. That's what we've tried to build. And HCL, it turns out, is just awesome for this use case. I mean, it's already great for Terraform. That's what we know and love it, right? We use it extensively in Steampipe for benchmarks, controls, all of the mod stuff, dashboards, all that sort of stuff as well. So we're familiar with it. We love it. But why it's so perfect for Flowpipe is because of that, directed acyclic graph that's based on the DAG that's at the heart of Terraform, which basically says, I'm creating this resource. Don't wait until that resource is created before you create the next one. Now wait until that one's created before you do that one. And you get all of that for free just by referring to the results, right? And Flowpipe inherits that. So when you have two steps and one just refers to the result of the other, that's it, you're done, right? They know to run in sequence, right? And HCL gives us all of that. It's a very ergonomic language for writing that sort of thing. Very simple to write for the user to do very complex, highly parallelized workflows that just read completely simply and almost declaratively. So HCL, it turns out, is the perfect language for describing this type of workflow scenario with that level of control. And now you're sitting there in version control, you've got all in code. It's way simpler than you get in Python or other things. And hopefully we've found that middle, right, where we think that these DevOps teams just really need a scripting language to be able to do these sorts of flexible operations across their cloud, with workflows, pipelines, and all that sort of stuff in a way that's as code that they can share, build on, collaborate on, and run and trust, right, to be in control.
But also, if I can add to that one as well, all the steps that you define, Nathan's everything, we've also built a lot of the common framework, which you touch about it. So you don't have to write your own retry, your dependencies, like the resource A depends on the resource B. You can refer to all the results or the attributes of the previous resource that you create, but also the retry process. If there is a failures or the backup, all the stuff that you would probably get with the workflow tools. But then if you go to the other way, then you have to build everything yourself. Right. All the backup and all the parallelization. If you want to run 5 things at the same time, you want to wait until those 5 things finish and then do the next thing. We've built everything in Flowpipe, and they're all done in the declarative language of HCL. Right. It takes a bit to understand if you're not familiar with it, but we believe a lot of people in this space have experienced HCL before, and so they should be able to grok it very quickly here. Yeah.
The cool thing too is like when we haven't pushed it much yet, but the function step, you just put a bit of Python code in there, say it's a function step. We just automatically wrap that up, run that as a little Docker Lambda container, run that code for you live in the thing. So if HCL is feeling a little much for you, just break out into Python, go nuts. It's fine, right? It's right there at your fingertips, and it'll even, you just edit the code, it'll automatically update and start using the new version of it. It's the simplest way I've ever seen to write Lambda functions, and especially when they're combined into a state machine of operation. It's really, really fun to play with. Can't wait to see what people build with it, to be honest.
Yeah, and I guess that's a good point, right? I mean, if you're a huge JavaScript developer or Python or Go or whatever, it's another way to run your stuff, essentially. So it's a good point. And so the other big part of this was also to have another hub. So there's a Steampipe hub that's very specific for Steampipe. This is Flowpipe and it has its own hub. Maybe just like talk through some of the, like, what were the reasons, or what are some of the initial mods that we came out with that we thought were important to kind of highlight as opportunities or workflows for people to start with. I don't know, Victor, Nathan, want to take that?
I can do it. That's fine. So we have Flowpipe, hub.flowpipe.io. Check it out. I think we came out with like 29-ish library mods. So something like AWS, there's like 70 pre-built pipelines in there. Right, 28. Okay, we
Yeah.
missed one right at the end. Okay, so basically, you know, we ended up putting pipelines in there like list your buckets, you know, tag a res, tag your bucket, you know, enable versioning, all sorts of different pipelines like that are just available and really easy for you to use that mod in your own. So you just build a new mod init, you know, Flowpipe mod install the AWS library, and then you've got all those pipelines ready to use from your mod. So we built the full composability into Flowpipe in that way, so you can start to break up your code into really easy reusable components. What surprised me actually when we're building, for example, the AWS one, was the simplest way actually to build those pipelines deep down in the AWS one was AWS CLI commands running in the standard AWS CLI container, which just means that even when you're digging down through it, the code is just so simple and readable and so familiar to anybody who does it. It's not lost in some weird Golang plugin or something that you can't read. It's just running a CLI command, and that scales really well. Flowpipe handles all the running and stopping of those containers for you, and it's just kind of magic. So we did things like that. OpenAI, if you want to do a whole bunch of, you know, generative AI stuff, you know, I don't know, Slack sending messages, all that stuff. It's really simple, ergonomic, you know, easy to use mods that you can use from your own pipeline. We then published a whole bunch of samples, 35-ish, and so basically they just demonstrate how to use that to combine those different mods together, etc. All those mods are open source. They're all Apache. You can browse them, use them as examples, leverage them in your own pipelines. Really gives you a starting point for building up from there. The sorts of use cases we see people doing that with that, operational things, setting tags, you know, security cases like checking for new access keys and then notifying if they're there, handling real-time events. Of course, we have triggers in Flowpipe too, so you can handle incoming webhooks, like someone created a repo or listen to your AWS events. It doesn't matter. Scheduled jobs. So you can just run those pipelines, you know, for all the operational needs you might have, whether in real time or on a scheduled basis.
Yeah, and for Victor or Nathan, were there any like aha moments when you guys were building on Flowpipe and were like, you know, wasn't necessarily what you guys were thinking of initially, and then as you're building out more, you started realizing, oh, wait, we can use this approach or this design or this architecture for Flowpipe, and that could pay this dividend, or this use case could be solved this way. You mentioned one around like just the functions, like being able just to plug in a function and then use any type of code. Are there any others that you guys want to call out, or something that surprised you when you guys were doing the development?
I think for me, the biggest aha moment is when we got all together and we start showing Flowpipe internally with our colleagues that just only heard about it, but never actually use it. And when everyone started using it, just the amount of applications that people come up with was surprising. Something that I would never dreamed of. Oh, what, you're doing it that way? And I guess that works. And it shows in the hub with all the different samples and everything, you know, because when you're working deep into it, you are focused on the use cases, you know, get the engine working, get the application working. But then what people comes out with, a lot of the things, the one that we try to put at the hub is very useful. Things like you just look for all IAM keys and deactivates and everything, and what they come up with it, that's just very, very simple. Yes, that is, of course, can you do everything yourself? Yes, you can, but you know, either you write a lot of code yourself and put all the heavy liftings and everything yourself, or you know, you have to figure out a way to do it in all those workflow tools. And then with Flowpipe, it's really simple. And all the samples there in the hubs, and it just looking at all the samples and everything, you just all the stuff that we would normally think about it, like even connecting to OpenAI, you know, and then combining the result to Slacks, and then what people shows us during that time when people start using it, it just really, I just never really thought about, you know, connecting to OpenAI and get the results and format it in this way and then push it to Slack. And
yeah,
you can see what the results in Slack straight away. It's just really, really, really cool. That's why I'm really excited to have it out there to see what people are going to use it with, because something that we couldn't possibly, no, I just never really thought about it. Oh, wow, I just really never really thought about that use case before.
yeah. I mean, I've had that with a lot of the community use cases, just on the Steampipe side. You know, just folks just connecting different plugins together. I would never even think about, like Salesforce and CrowdStrike for different types of data sets around users and then vulnerabilities on their devices. Makes sense after I hear it once, but you know, I wasn't thinking of, oh, there should be a dashboard for that between those two tools. And so that dependency that you might not see right away, I mean, it's nice when it's a whole ecosystem that can easily be wired up. And now the Flowpipe, its own standalone tool, and there'll be probably folks that just use Flowpipe for its own, Steampipe same, but there is this nice synergy between the two. If you guys want to just talk about that, like why would you use Flowpipe and Steampipe? And maybe
that was my aha when we saw people using it at at Turbot Integrated. We did a whole hackathon around it for a few days to just get people building stuff and really beat the crap out of it. Poor Victor had a queue at his desk for fixing bugs and getting things improved those days. It was fun, but watching people use the query step in Flowpipe to query Steampipe, which is just a database. You can query any database you want. It's not special to Steampipe, but it's just, we just query Steampipe with it. And all of a sudden we're pulling in account data, data from, tens of Amazon accounts or across, like the Jira tickets or the, GitHub. We were just pulling data from everywhere into Flowpipe. And then it was just there as data in arrays. We could just start using a for each loop in Flowpipe to cycle through it, make decisions, do all sorts of things. Oh my God, it made it so easy to work with that data, just pulling it in from Steampipe. And then we were doing some pretty cool things to look at the connection it came from as well, marrying that to the credential sets we might have had set up. Like, it was amazing how far we could go so quickly with that combination, that separation of the reading, which Steampipe's so amazing at, with then the ability to run commands and other things, which Flowpipe's really, really great at coordinating. It's a very, very powerful combination if you want to go down that route.
Yeah, for sure. And that's and I think that's one of the more exciting things is around tapping into those ecosystems together and seeing. I mean, often what we talk about from a Turbot Pipe standpoint is we're looking at a whole ecosystem of querying and reporting as well as acting, right? And then Flowpipe is really that engine to help you act on your data. And so this is kind of fulfilling that overarching kind of data governance and how you're going to manage data.
Yeah, with Steampipe, we asked, what's the easiest way to ask a question of your data? With Flowpipe, we're just like, what's the easiest way to write my first little script to perform an action or have an automated job in my cloud? And we really believe this tool is that.
Yeah, so we're excited, fully released, had some folks already pounding on it in the community on Wednesday. So looking forward to getting more community feedback and seeing where our folks take it.
100%.
So, and then on Thursday, we announced another brand new announcements for Turbot Pipes. So last launch week, we announced the availability of Turbot Pipes, and we first introduced a free developer tier. So anyone can go sign up. And if you haven't used Turbot Pipes, please go sign up. Pipes.turbot.com. Super simple to sign up. And then you can start querying your Amazon accounts, Azure subscriptions, etc. You can get started right with your data right away. And that free developer tier is free always. And then one of the things that we announced last launch week was a team plan. So now to bring your team in, set up an organization, manage your data in isolation workspaces, have an RBAC model for that. But we got that out there. Folks have been, signing up, converting, etc. But some of the folks were looking for a little bit more control over that. So it's great that they have an organization, they can manage their workspaces, they can do some role-based access controls, but now they're looking for more enterprise type of security, like more multi-organization management. And so maybe if you want to just talk through, the Turbot Enterprise tier and kind of where we're taking from an organizational wide.
Yeah, no, totally. So Pipes, of course, you have your developer account. So you're in, and then you get added to teams that are created in that environment. So it's very similar to GitHub, right? You're a user who gets added to those different teams or organizations, as we might call them in Pipes, to work across different things, organize your stuff, and blah blah blah. But if you're an enterprise, it's too open. You want more control than that, right? So what we do is in Pipes Enterprise, you get effectively your own tenant with your own user namespace. So the users in that are only approved by you, added by you, managed by you, using email, GitHub, Google, whatever you want to turn on and off, you can enable them. And of course, SAML is the big one that everybody wants in there. So you can turn on and control access to it through SAML. We've always had single sign-on, right, in pipes, and we always will, but SAML's for your org, for managing your teams as an enterprise thing, and we allow that in the enterprise tier. So the first thing is your own tenant with your own namespace for users, so you can be sure and know who's in there and control that authentication completely the way you want it to be. That's a huge checkbox. The second one is, of course, then you get your own organization structure inside that tenant. You can create as many organizations as you want, and then as many workspaces inside those as you want. So you can arrange all of your teams as appropriate, you know, put DevOps over here, put an application team over there. It's up to you how you want to arrange your assets in that pipes environment. It gives you a lot more control and flexibility if you want to keep permissions, keep them separate, you know, just isolate them, understand the billing from the different areas. All that stuff's possible in pipes the way it's set up in that pipes enterprise tier. So that's the big features for that. We really think that unlocks all of the power and flexibility of pipes, right, for people at an enterprise scale and with the level of control and security you need. Super keen to, you know, for people to tell us what else they want and hear how that goes for them. But having that out under the same simple pricing model, you know, 2-week free trial, sign up anytime. We're really proud of that. There's no drama. You don't have to talk to a sales guy first. We love talking to Bob, but you know, as DevOps people, often we just want to kick the tires and try things. You can do that with Pipes Enterprise. Just sign up, try it, and then, you know, simple pricing and then pay as you go.
Yeah, and you know, interesting enough, I mean, an enterprise tier product having a 14-day free trial with complete sign up without talking to sales or going through any type of stage gate, and so zero friction to get started, try it out, no obligation, and you know, cancel anytime. So we are looking that, you know, for folks like, and this is what we saw with the team plan or the team tier, is that easy to get going, try it out. And you know, make a decision if it's the right, you know, organizational structure that you're looking for. Now with teams, you kind of have another option to say, do I need an isolated pipe environment, a logically isolated environment? How much control do you actually need? And being able to try out the team and then enterprise or vice versa is really powerful for folks to get going.
100%. And that's sort of part of our philosophy we've spoken about before, about, you know, wanting to work with teams in this way. We're very open. Things are open source. We have very open Slack channels and communication. We do discussions like this with our engineers. That openness, part of that is letting you try the tool, putting it all out there, right? Because we want your feedback. We want you to use it. We want to make it better based on what you're telling us that you need, right? So that's the same philosophy you're seeing through it. If you like that, you'll like pipes. Yeah,
for sure. And you know, it's interesting, like the you know, for our community is mainly made up of engineers, some type of discipline of being an engineer. You know, we had one of our community members that signed up, and then all of a sudden they're using the Terraform provider. They're automatically setting up all the organizations, the users, the RBAC controls. You know, it's very familiar for them just to keep kind of seeing that all. It's not a ClickOps type of enterprise tool. It was very easy for the engineering side to just set it up, get going.
That's true.
So that was nice to see.
It was.
Some people firing off on it. So yeah, so you know, that went through the whole week. It was awesome. Launch week number 2. You know, there's a huge amount of features, a new open source project with Flowpipe. It really is launching us into launch week 3, and we're really excited to kind of iterate and share some new exciting stuff for our next launch week. Anything else from you guys that you guys want to share or talk about that might have missed?
Main thing for me was just to do a big shout out and thank you to the whole team. It's a massive amount of work doing one of these, you know, with so many launches in parallel, you know, new websites coming out, documentation changes, like, and just an incredible effort all around to bring it out. So proud and so excited to, you know, keep building. Just great work.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate both of your times. Thanks for walking us through launch week number 2, and we'll chat in the near future. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.